It's time for Bingo is Life. Our podcast.
Hey.
Joined over here by funnier than the Smothers Brothers, almost as funny as the Everly Brothers.
Wow, nice.
Mike and Chris Hadishaw.
That's awfully nice, Jay.
To my left.
Smothers and Everly.
Lovely.
We're being photographed by the government.
That's because we put up that sign.
Yeah.
Scanning the barcode, QR code.
Good.
That's Mum Shackle.
Hey.
Hey.
We've got some great guests. Well, one guest in the silent Dave chair and a silent guest in the silent Aaron chair.
That's right. That's right.
I'm still Jay's heir.
Still. Good.
Doing great and not in jail.
There you go. That's right. Still alive and not in jail. Who was that we used to say that?
His name was Tom. He's not alive anymore.
Oh,
but,
Tom. Yes.
Tom was
He's not in
full
jail
of
on this
wonderful
season.
sayings.
Yeah.
Tom was wonderful.
Yeah, Tom was great.
Miss Tom.
Yep.
We only have 4 hosts tonight. We might actually hear.
Oh,
a
that's
few
right.
things.
Dan is not. Dan is not with us.
Dan.
I mean, he's alive.
Get better soon, brother.
Yeah.
I've been there with that one. That's the bear of a thing.
And you're probably not listening to this episode, but I'm not going to bring cake by your house after the podcast because it is gone.
Whoa.
The cake is gone.
The cake
It
is
has
Did we
been
reference-
consumed.
The big 100.
We have not yet.
Oh,
No.
guess what it
but
is?
but we're going to. That's right. This is our 100th episode.
Wow.
Yeah. So, thank you, Christian Parrott, for providing
That's
us
right.
with that
Song.
reminder of a soundtrack. So I wrote some things. I want to say some things because this moment is special to me.
Oh.
So I want to say happy 100th episode. Tonight's bingo game, by the way, was awesome. We had
So
a
much
very
fun.
energetic crowd.
Good people.
And,
They were a magical crowd. There
they
were none
right?
of them here, and then poof, they were here.
Yeah, it was like 7:30 happened, and then bang.
Those
Yeah.
women are from Bridgewater College. That explains everything.
Yeah. There are people from Bridgewater College.
They drive all the
That
way to the
happens
big
too.
city of Harrisonburg.
The big city. So anyways, I wanted to share a few tidbits about this show. First off, most people don't know it, but the official name for this silly thing is Bingo is Life, the Post-Bingo Harrisonburg podcast. Now, we don't say it very often, but that's
It
just
rolls off the tongue. I
It
don't
really
know why.
does.
Now, well, this was an intentional play off of Bill Burr's equally terrible podcast name, the Thursday Afternoon, Monday Morning podcast. When I named it, that was what I was listening to at the time. So that's kind of where it came from. But we've discussed changing the name many, many times.
Many.
And nothing else is stuck.
We could just change it by executive order.
Maybe we need to. I know
The Stinkbug City podcast.
Stinkbug City. I know at one point we said Behind the Berg was like a close thing. We talked about it. Ooh, so I don't know. Maybe we'll get some feedback from listeners, all 50 of them.
Yeah.
50.
All our lines are open. Call
That's
in
right.
at any moment here
That's right.
at the
Any
number at
moment.
the bottom of your screen and voice your concerns and opinions.
I wanted to note that this little project started February 7th of 2023. It was recorded on an iPhone, which sat in the middle of a table as Chris, Jay, and myself introduced, and I quote, "It was the first ever post-bingo podcast." We then gave ourselves an aggrandized applause, which we have continued to do ever since. So, yes, that's every podcast afterward, we do it.
Yeah.
Even during the show, just like that. Thank you, Chris. The big news, this is funny, the big news at that time was about a Chinese spy balloon that the U.S. had under surveillance. And our first guest was Olivia. She was Ruby's server, who just happened to walk by at the moment.
And be on our podcast.
And at some point, I blurted out, "Welcome aboard. We're doing a podcast." And Jay follows with, "Do you know anything about Chinese spy balloons?"
It seems like you guys have really kept on brand.
So yeah, we talked conspiracy theories, pie throwing, and how the bingo crowd felt like a cult, which we've kept up with the cult conversations
yeah.
too. During this conversation, Chris eventually asked, "Are we still doing a podcast?" Which is also on brand. Episode 1, our interview standards and our show preparation were already clearly established. Originally posted only to YouTube, the first show lasted just over 5 minutes.
Yay!
Yeah, and
That's
I will throw out there it's no longer publicly available because it sounds like crap. I could barely make out what was going on, but that's all right.
Stricken from the public
From
record.
that moment on, our show has grown to the humble behemoth that you now know and love. The show is hosted through a service called Podbean. and they provide stats that I wanted to pass along on this event, this occasion.
Stats. I
So
like stats.
now starting our third season, we've had nearly 4,000 episode downloads. A download is considered a listen. So when people listen to the show, that's what they call it. Currently, we are averaging just under 50 downloads a week. And the vast majority of our listeners, 92% of them, are coming from the United States. Our top states,
America.
Our top states are Virginia, and then after Virginia, California. Interesting. Then, of course, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New York. After the top 5, though, are the state with 85 listens, Oklahoma.
Yeah. They're huge in Oklahoma.
So thank you, Oklahoma.
The Sooners.
There's probably like a Harrisonburg in Oklahoma, and people are thinking that all these things are happening in their town.
Right. Maybe
You're
so.
wrong.
Sorry, Oklahoma. Or you're welcome, Oklahoma. I'm not sure. We
amazing.
also have the other 8% of our listeners, by the way, 8% coming from around the globe. After the United States, we have 103 listens from China.
Yay!
Yep. Then Singapore, the United Kingdom, which is mainly Britain. We have some Russian downloads, some Canadian downloads, Japan, Ukraine. We even have 5 people from Italy that listen to us. So there you go.
No Latvian.
As much as we've tried, we still are trying to get that Latvian audience.
What if it's just one
It still eludes us.
and they're listening and they're
right.
traveling and listening to different episodes in
that's
different
right.
countries?
Maybe.
It's just that one guy.
Well, we'll find him. Most of our listens happen on a Wednesday, interestingly enough,
Makes sense.
which means that the folks like our episodes right hot off the presses.
That's right.
But the most interesting stat to me, anyways, is our top 10 episode list. And I have it here, our top 10 episode list. So I thought I would share it with you just to see what you thought. So this is based on just the most amount of listens, okay? And this is only through Podbean. We also are available on YouTube now.
Yeah.
And they track their own things separately. But I tried to add up some numbers and see what I could find. Here is the top 10. Number 10 was episode 63. It was Dr. Doe, Dorothy Polands, PhD, professor, director. That was back in May. Number 9 was Christian Parrott with New Year, Same Dog Story from January 2nd.
Oh, good.
That was a little over a year ago. Number 8 was our very own Dan Easley talks about his new album. The Gang talks about Harrisonburg.
Whoa.
It was an exciting time.
Yeah.
Then number 7, Sean Gatesman with the Friendly Fermenter,
Perfect,
and he spills the goods. Number 6, JP Gula. And Leanne Shepard when they talked about the Court Square events.
Yeah.
At number 5, we have Bill Howard, who the myth, the legend. Number 4 was Sandra Parks. She was a retired teacher, librarian, storyteller. And then number 3, 2, and 1. Any guesses? On
Dave Scott.
Any of who these people
I know
would
Dave
be?
Scott's one of them.
Okay, Dave Scott. Any guesses?
Was it
Of all of the guests, number 3, number 2, number 1, our top 3.
Dave was definitely
Dave
one
was
of them.
one, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Number 3, coming in with Talking the Little Grill Returns Blues.
Of course.
was our very own Ron Copeland.
Ron Copeland, yeah.
Number 2, the songwriter's story, Julia Cottrell.
Everyone
Yes.
loves Julia.
Yeah, she's great.
And then our very own number 1, Dave Scott, author, comedian, nice guy.
Yeah. Good job,
Yeah.
Dave.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So,
You
anyways,
won.
I thought that was overall, this has been a fantastic run. I'm super excited to see it continue to wherever it might go. Many, many thanks to Jay, Dan, Mum Shackles, and even you, Chris. Thank you very
thanks,
much.
brother.
I hope this strange little hobby gives you all the same amount of joy it gives me.
Oh,
Thank
yes.
you.
Truly. Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you.
Hey, well, now, and well, the other thing too, I'll speak to the fact that at the end of these things, Mike goes home and spends hours
It depends.
editing them and
Yep.
getting them so they're up on Wednesday morning.
He cuts
Which-
out all of Jay's terrible language. He cuts out all of my lewd remarks.
He's got to bleep all this stuff.
Yeah, got to bleep some things.
And it is I love being with you guys. So this is great.
Same.
super cool.
This has definitely been a source of joy for me as well, as well
Awesome.
as a coping mechanism.
Very
Yeah.
cool. Very
So,
cool.
thank you.
Well, it's interesting you say that. Another reason that I got into this, okay, was a few months before we started doing this, a good friend of mine passed away. And I looked at it as kind of just another avenue to kind of just try something new and different and just, different headspace. And by God, it worked. And I feel great about it. And I'm super glad to be doing this.
It's awesome. And Jay, what do you have anything to say?
He's like, I hate you all.
It's a wonderful experience. You did some wonderful things with that role.
Jay's still a
Very
little
directorial.
Jay's still a little shell-shocked, as earlier we passed out cake among the throng. We went
yes.
into the crowd with a full cake tray.
Yeah.
Jake was What? Jay was passing out plates like a maniac, and we came out of the throng with an empty tray and crumbs.
And thank you for bringing that
Yes,
cake.
thank you for bringing the cake.
I
It was fun.
had a primal scream therapy session today that went south, so I'm just
Interesting.
Bubbly.
Gotcha.
Too much information.
Gotcha. That's all right. That's all right.
So I did hear, so
Fascinating.
Dan isn't here.
Dan's not here.
So we missed you, Dan. But you have an unexpected notion.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yes. Dan is out. He spent a little bit too much time and effort repairing the roof at Kmart. That's a metaphor.
It makes sense.
But we do have another unexpected notion from not Dan Easley.
Nice.
She was the girl of my dreams, but it ended in despair. I could not give her children, and she did not like my hair. I'm not Dan Easley.
That was another unexpected notion from not Dan Easley.
You really want them to like your hair. I don't know why, but it's
That was
it's
an
true.
inside joke.
Man.
Does that is that from where you asked the AI to create?
No, I
some
came
things?
out of the brain of Jay Zare. That could be AI. I could be an AI
Gotcha.
construct.
Maybe
I
it
don't
is.
know.
Yeah. We did last week. The supplemental episode last week was a bunch of AI talking about our show. It was kind of self-reflective and weird.
There's some salient moments.
Yeah.
It did kind of cut through to get to the.
You got
nuts
it.
and
Yeah, it's right
bolts.
there.
I'm making the Italian food hand gesture.
They do kind of have self-awareness. They got pissed off when I tried to say that he had a low testosterone.
You're right. He got a little angry.
He was shaming me.
Yeah.
I was getting shamed by AI for being toxically masculine.
Wow.
Well, I guess you
that was
never know.
on an episode that you did
That
by
was an
yourself.
episode.
That was not the one.
Not the one we did.
Oh,
That's
that's
not the
right.
one
Yeah.
That was
Mike
Jay
aired.
Zare going down the rabbit hole of
I see.
AI podcast.
I would, if anyone's interested, we probably can share some audio with you that's a little interesting.
But they called it an opus in absurdity.
Opus of
which
absurdity,
I did
yes.
love that phrase.
Well,
And they also, connected something that I've been thinking about that our podcast is kind of becoming, and that I am really proud of that our podcast is becoming. And it's an oral history of Harrisonburg via artists and
Yeah.
makers.
Interesting people.
Interesting people, yeah.
Speaking of which,
Speaking of which is a great segue. Yes, we did it. Oh, okay. So I'm just going to throw out
They've been
here,
sitting there very, very patiently.
All right,
Lord, love
folks.
'em.
I'm gonna introduce you guys to our guest. Okay, he's this is what he wrote. So I'm going to kind of read what he wrote.
Interesting.
He goes, my resume is sort of concert photographer since 2006, totaling 104 music festivals and countless amount of concerts. Along the way, I did a feature documentary film about concert photography that won 10 international film festivals.
A year in the pit.
I've been doing wildlife photography steady for 5 years. I put a lot of time into that. I shot the Forbes Center at JMU for 7 years, Harrisonburg City Public Schools for 12 years now. I was a working bass player from 80 to 2011. I need to talk about that. I'm interested
all
in that.
of these things.
Then coached youth rock bands for 9 years. Blah, blah, blah. Any of this is open for conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the one, the only, Bob Adamek.
Thank you. Welcome
thank you.
aboard.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
I'm glad you're here, bud. Hey, all right. So that was just a brief intro to all the different things you do. I'll say personally, my first introduction to you was you've probably taken pictures of the Judy Chops of like years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the first time. And then I noticed you were taking pictures in the high school because now my kids are in high school. So.
Right.
At least one of them is. So that was my first introduction to you. And I know all the Judy Chop folks were like, "We love Bob."
Ooh, nice.
They are like family.
Yeah. No, that's so good. That's so fantastic. So how? My first question though is, how did you land in Harrisonburg?
I had prepared an audition for Manhattan School of Music as an electric bass player in their jazz program, and got it. Got in, and at that time I was reading Jack Kerouac's On the Road, and all I wanted to do was take off and
Settle down.
There's a good friend of mine named Ed Schmidt. He's from my hometown. And
Ed and Jen.
Yeah. Ed was going to JMU at the time. And after I read On the Road, I called him up and I said, "Hey, you mind if I come down and visit your town?" Because every time he was home, he'd regale us with these stories from his crazy college town.
Oh, fun.
So I came down to visit and brought my bass. And by the second night here, I wasn't staying at Ed's house. He introduced me to some musicians, and we got together the next day and jammed, and that went on for 8 hours. And I wound up really falling in love with the place.
Amazing.
My roots, even though I'm from New Jersey, my dad was from the farmland in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time on the farm that he grew up on. And I had been living in New York City. And when I came down here, I kind of reconnected with the outdoors. And so it took me, I only wound up going to school at Manhattan for a year. And every break I had, I would come down here, and I was playing with more and more musicians. And finally, there was a band that was asking me to come down and play. And I thought I could save myself 3 years of college payments and do what I want to do right now. So
It's
I came
just
down and wound up
financially
playing.
the right thing to do.
What was the name of the band?
It was The Shuffle.
The Shuffle.
Shuffle.
Yeah.
And give me the years. What years
that's-
are we talking?
That
was 86.
I'm having some flashbacks.
It was Mike Bronson on guitar, Bruce Royer on
Mike
drums.
Bronson was a great guitar player.
He was phenomenal
Is he still
guitar
living?
player. As far as I know. I saw him on Facebook a couple of years back.
That's a rude question. But it was a long time ago.
You never know.
Yeah,
That's right. You never know.
All right. So you are playing music.
Players. Well, Midtown.
What places were you playing?
Midtown. Did you play Midtown? Midtown. That was the what's now Clementine was called the Midtown in '83 when I got here.
No, I didn't move down and really start playing gigs till '87.
Cars.
But I played the Grill. As a matter of fact, I think I played the Grill in 9 different bands.
That's fantastic.
As a matter of fact, I borrowed a bass amp from Jay to play the Grill at New Year's Eve, 1989, if I remember.
Yeah, everybody kept borrowing that amp. It was like,
Well, I think
That amp was like the village bicycle.
to be a musician in Harrisonburg, you had to either be in 9 bands to truly be a musician, or you had to borrow Jay's amp.
that's why I quit. I quit playing the bass. I quit playing electric music because that bass amp was so heavy, and then I was wearing these earplugs. Everybody would. I was playing with Doug Pitts, and he would crack that
of
thing. You know,
Yeah,
it's like,
thanks, Doug.
I'm breaking my back to lug this amp around to wear earplugs. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I'm going to play old time, and then I never did. But let's talk about
What kind of music were you playing then? All over the place? What?
Yeah, it's pretty well all over the
Yeah.
place. I studied jazz for a number of years before I went to Manhattan, and then that was all jazz.
Now, I want to make sure I got the story right. So you got a job in Manhattan, but then came to visit here?
I was going to Manhattan School of Music,
Oh, okay, man.
studying music.
Okay, you're studying music.
And
then you came
then I kept getting invited to be in the Shuffle.
Yeah.
And I thought they were a regional band. They played all up and down the East Coast, but were based out of here. So I thought, well, really, that's what I want to do anyway.
Yeah. Right.
So I moved down and made the jump, and the Shuffle broke up not too long after.
It was probably Jay's amp.
It was before I had privilege to it.
I see.
Hey,
yeah.
where was your farm in Jersey? Like, how far out?
Hightstown.
Is
It
that
was sort of outside of Philadelphia, but we lived up closer to New York City,
Gotcha.
right outside.
Fun. So what now? So you're in Harrisonburg. You've landed. You're
In
playing
9 bands.
Yeah, you're playing some music. When did photography become your? When did that start?
When I was living in New Jersey, I was living with a guy after I moved out of my parents' house named Jim Ritchell, and he was really into photography as a hobbyist.
Yeah.
And he used to have one of those little disc cameras.
Oh,
The negatives were just a little round disc.
Right.
And because we lived on our own, everybody was always at our place. And he would take that camera from another room, just stick it into this room, around the wall, click. And those photos
Interesting.
utterly fascinated me.
Huh.
Like I was just so sucked into how cool it was to capture everybody in a candid way.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I bought.
Usually
Pocket
New Jersey's not known for being a photogenic town.
New Jersey is not known as a town.
Oh, as a town,
It's a
right.
state.
But no, capturing people in a room, just, in a moment of time, that's cool. Because you could do that anywhere. It doesn't have to be Jersey.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah,
but I was
right.
living in Jersey.
Yeah,
when
right.
that
Living in
happened.
Jersey. Just good.
So the documentary that doesn't get as much attention as it should. That was
Right.
awesome.
Oh,
That's how
thank
I
you,
met.
Jay. I
That's how I
appreciate
met you.
Oh, really?
Because I was working at Quart Square,
Right,
and
right.
you all debuted your film.
Yeah,
and
that's
you're in the
right.
pit there.
I had the premiere. That was fantastic.
Am I correct? You shot that on iPhones, right?
Yeah, it was on an iPhone 11 that sat in a gimbal, and the gimbal was kind of a Frankenstein machine that my collaborator John Woody kind of invented himself. There were
That's cool.
like a gimbal component that he got, and then excuse me, attached all kinds of tried tons and tons of different microphones, and then got some software that really juiced up the video as it came in, like really made it more high res. And when you watch it, you can't tell that it's not shot
Right.
on
Well,
Yeah.
like major.
for those who have not seen
camera
it,
rig.
can you give some sort of synopsis, some sort of like...
Yeah, it was called A Year in the Pit,
Okay.
and John, he and I knew each other a little bit, and I was shooting the Lock-In Music Festival one year, and John was backstage, and he came up to me and said, I really like what you do and how you do it, and I was thinking of making a documentary film about it. And I thought the notion was absurd. It was like, I just didn't think I was that interesting that I should have a documentary film. So he said, well, just think about it and we'll talk next week.
Yeah.
So I thought about it, and what occurred to me is I had been shooting music festivals from like New Orleans up to Massachusetts. I was friends with a ton of incredible photographers from all over the country, and well, why not bring them in?
Oh, yeah.
So I suggested that to him on Monday, and he said, I was actually kind of thinking the same thing, that maybe we can get some other people into it. So we wound up interviewing, I think, 45 photographers.
Wow.
We went to 10 music festivals and shot there. By halfway through the production, we had music festivals reaching out to us to say,
that's
hey,
cool.
we'd like to have you guys come down and shoot at our festival.
Right.
And so we shot in Aiken Bluegrass Fest in South Carolina, went to French Quarter Fest in New Orleans. We wound up, unfortunately, I'd never made a film. I didn't know anything about it. And John probably could have been better at reining me in.
Yeah.
I really had no idea the amount of work I was dropping on him, because I was
Yeah.
like, I started making lists of, okay, we got to get all these people,
Right.
And we wound up flying out to L.A. and we interviewed a bunch of photographers there, and then drove up to San Francisco, interviewed photographers there, and that was the end of February or mid-February of 2020. And we flew home not knowing that the coronavirus had already taken root in San Francisco at that time. Nobody knew it, really.
Yeah.
So we got kind of lucky that we escaped the real critical, super contagious time of that thing. And we had plans to go up to New York and to Atlanta and then to Washington, D.C. We already had 45 photographers, a bunch of music festival directors, festival media directors, and a bunch of musicians that were friends of mine.
Yeah.
And, as John was working his way through the edit, everybody, we wound up doing features on about 7 different photographers that were span the range, but I think we're hitting most of the sort of biggest photographers that we had interviewed, and everybody else wound up with like 2 sentences because there just wasn't. We did it in 1 hour. Is what it boiled down to, and I had like 10 more people I wanted to put in this thing.
Well, I did not finish the whole thing. I watched the first half. Sorry, but I was busy while I was doing that. Sorry, but the half I saw. The piece that I thought was really interesting. Well, you were in Floyd Fest, right? I never got to go. I mean, I guess it's still happening. Is it still happening?
It's moved to a new location, and this will be the second year of it.
Okay, cool. Well, but I've always thought that would be a one for me. But I really enjoyed seeing some video from that. But one of the guys was like, "Well, they only let us do 3 songs now." Or something like that. Yeah. I didn't know that was a real thing. So there's like they kind of time you and let you come in as in groups.
It was something that I actually think it was Bruce Springsteen who started this back in the mid '80s. I think he got sick of all the photographers that were down in front in the photo pit, which is that area right between the stage and the crowd, and he got tired of having 100 cameras pointed at him all night long, and made the rule that you can come in for the first 3 songs. That's it. And to this day, most big name acts are like that. I shot Paul McCartney at Camden Yards, and I was only allowed the first 2, which was Can't Buy Me Love, which is like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And Junior's Farm, which was a little bit longer. And I think I probably still ripped off 700 photos in those 2 songs.
Amazing. Wow. So I really want to talk about that. How did you get the invitation to go be a photographer of Paul McCartney? That's amazing.
I think what it boils down to is maybe 2 things. One, I've been shooting concerts and festivals since 2006, and I've learned how to write the email. So learned how to phrase it professionally.
Are there like special passwords you need?
No, it's not that tricky.
Can't buy me love.
Can't buy me love. You know what I mean, Paul?
Yeah, Paul.
It's actually just a matter of acting like you got sense when you write it. And
I've loved all your songs since I was
exactly.
Can't
And there's certain language that people in the industry use.
I've got a gimbal.
Right? I do want to know what a gimbal is, though. Didn't quite get to interject
I will
soon enough.
gimbal this thing up and down.
But now that we're back.
So I wrote when I found out that he was going on tour, I think it was in 2022, I called an editor who's a friend of mine from Jason Herman from DC Music Review, and I had covered a bunch of events for him, and we were good friends. He's actually in the documentary.
Cool.
And I said, hey, listen, now I didn't work for him. I was freelance more or less. And he just let me, if I called up and said, hey, I'd really like to cover this thing. He said, all right, what do you need from me? So I reached out and I said, hey, I'm thinking I want to try and get McCartney. Because, let's see, in 1977, I bought Sgt. Pepper. And 3 years later, I played my first paying gig as a bass player, and there was a direct line from one thing to the other. So
Absolutely.
I started thinking that,
Yeah,
wow, if I
right.
could photograph him, that'd be a great
Spiritual
sort of-
connection.
Yeah.
Well,
Or I could shake my fist at him
Yeah.
because I'm like, my life of poverty is because of you.
Thank you for leading me astray, Paul.
My brother has said many times, and I am in agreement. Paul McCartney is a modern day saint.
I think he's a living god.
Olivia, yeah. I mean, he not only is his mute. I mean, he's just a gosh. I love Paul McCartney.
Same.
We went and saw him when he played at John Paul Jones.
Yeah, John Paul Jones.
And it was amazing.
It was,
Oh my God.
I was incredibly focused and nervous. And basically, we wrote the letter and they said yes. And I was one of 4 people that got to shoot it.
Wow.
Which was really freaking me out.
That's amazing. That's
So they sent a letter, and this is an email. This is the first time I've ever gotten this. It was an email that said, Mr. McCartney will be lit at X amount of lumens at, this lighting temperature.
Wow.
And I was like, if I was smarter, I would have been able to set my cameras before I left the house. And what John Woody told me, he says they have all that set up like that because of all the video screens.
Yeah, sure.
All the amount of light poured onto the stage can't interrupt the video screen.
Okay, yeah.
And they have that amazingly worked out.
Right, technical people being technical.
Now, yeah.
and having state-of-the-art systems.
Yeah.
That's also nice.
Yeah, it is nice.
So I had to. Camden Yards, unfortunately, did not give me a lock room, and I was only allowed to shoot the first 2. But since I was also writing the show, reviewing it, they gave me a 10th row center ticket.
Oh,
But
nice.
before I could get that, I had to run like a mile away from the stadium to where my car was parked in a parking deck.
So you can lock everything up.
Lock everything up,
Oh,
and then
my
run
God.
another
Yeah,
mile back
yeah.
to the stadium, get my ticket from Will Call, and then get
Yeah.
in.
Wow.
So
So you not only were taking pictures, you got to write about the show as
yeah,
well.
yes.
How many songs did you end up missing then? Maybe.
I don't really know.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever looked at the set list to figure it out, but I
Yeah.
missed a couple.
Yeah.
I got to shoot Elton John at Nationals Park, and they had a lock room for me, so
Oh,
I think
nice.
I only missed 2 songs.
I doubt he missed too many Paul McCartney. Maybe he tells stories in between each of these songs.
He really does.
You usually probably don't get to meet an artist like that.
Not on that
in
level.
the situation.
Yeah.
I spend most of my time shooting much smaller festivals and artists, and most of them have become friends. They're generally the headliner at Floyd Fest. I probably am not going to get to talk to a couple of headliners for sure.
right.
But everybody else that is on the rise and are just happy to have the photos.
Totally.
Most of the big name acts, they don't need them.
Yeah. Right.
They have their own tour photographer who goes with them, and so they
Now, are they in the pit with you, or are they
Yeah.
just kind of?
a lot of times they are,
Yeah.
but they have all access.
Yeah, right.
So I become a staff photographer at 5 different festivals, and as a staff photographer, I have all access, so I can go behind the drummer and get the shot of the crowd, all that kind of stuff.
The money,
And it's really
the money
fun.
shot.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I don't really have to. Writing is hard, and I don't really have to write
Oh,
anymore.
gotcha. Writing is hard. Yeah.
This is a very trivial question. How's your hearing after all this?
Believe it or not, it's still good. I mean, mostly. I have to turn TV up a little bit louder.
Yeah.
What an interesting question.
Did you wear hearing protection, or did you just go for it?
I just went for it. I mean, I stood in front of my amp for 30 years, and I was sadly a pretty loud bass player.
And in front of your amp for like 2 or 3 shows at least.
That was a loud amp.
it was.
Thank you, Doug Bitts.
So, but I kind of want to bring it back to Harrisonburg because at some point you said maybe 12 years ago you started doing photos of Harrisonburg High School.
Yeah. Well, how it started was my kids started in 2001 in the K-12 system here in Harrisonburg.
Yeah.
And I was already moving into photography as a pretty strong hobby. And my wife kept encouraging me. She really, we both really liked the photos that I took, and she said, "Man, you're really good at this. You ought to take it more seriously and like get a real camera." Because I was shooting with just like a pocket Instamatic. So I did. I went out and I got an SLR camera and was shooting film. And so for all the events that my kids were at, I would shoot the event and then I would make tons of copies of the photos and give them to the teacher, the coach, the director, whoever it was, and let them give them to the other kids' parents and whatever. And I got to a point where I think my daughter was in 8th grade. She was at Thomas Harrison. My son was there for 6, 7, 8. And by the time my daughter got there, it was 5, 6, 7, 8. And I really loved working in that school. I was the official photographer for their musicals and plays and stuff.
Cool.
And the reason I say it like that is they have to pay a bunch of money for the copyrights to put the thing on.
Absolutely.
So they can allow parents to take photographs and video and stuff like that. But they permit one photographer.
Nice.
So I got to be it.
Okay. Did they give you a lumen scale to follow while you were...
Peter Pan will be.
Peter Pan will be lit by an RGB... I can't even make up words.
Public school funding is probably just one light switch.
Yeah, right. The 100-watt bulb will be on.
So close to the
And
truth.
I'm just basing that on the fact that we get their hand-me-downs at our theater.
Okay.
So,
Gotcha.
So I realized that when my daughter was in 8th grade, that was going to be my last year shooting Thomas Harrison. And I didn't really like that idea because I've become friends with the staff and I like going in there to shoot. I used to help build the sets and stuff. So our superintendent of schools at that time, Dr. Kisner, was a big music fan. I was coaching kid rock bands at the time and youth rock bands, not kid rock.
I was going to say kid rock. Like
Bow chicka bow wow, or whatever that song is.
dong with the dong, but dong, you dang, digga, digga. What?
Oh, no.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
We had none of that.
It's Bob's thing. He loves it.
It's kid rock bands, kid rock cover bands. Who knew?
So anyway, Dr. Kisner would, I'd invite him to the shows that I would put on with all these youth bands. And
With all your Kid Rock tribute bands. We know.
and we became friends. So I asked for an interview, or I just asked for a meeting.
Yeah.
And he said, sure. So I came in. It was probably a month and a half later when I got it set. And I went in, and I didn't tell him what it was about, but he sniffed something. He goes, "What's your pitch?"
Good.
Nice.
That's a good superintendent right there.
Yes. So my pitch was, I said, I think I can elevate the profile of Harrisonburg City public schools through professional quality images and social media.
Whoa, that's a good pitch.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So he pushed back in his chair and he said, well, I have to try and get 3 new schools approved in the next 5 years, and I could really use to have our profile raised.
Yeah.
So he said, let's try it.
Yeah.
So we started to try and figure out the parameters of how I do the job, because I figured, well, I'm going to be out in the evenings and on weekends shooting all kinds of events, but there's probably not going to be much for me to shoot at 8 in the morning, so I don't know what my hours are going to be like. And he said, well, why don't we look around the state at the other school divisions photographers, and we'll base like salary and hours on how they do.
Right.
And what we found out then, and I think as far as I know up to like a year and a half ago, is still true. I'm still the only division photographer in the state of Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Nobody else
Amazing.
has
That's cool.
hired one.
That is very cool.
So at any rate, he gave me a chance, and I did my best to make myself invaluable.
Yeah,
And,
And you have.
I worked as hard as I could.
All of those schools got built, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
We'll remember that when we're writing out our property tax.
This one's for
This
Bob
one's for Bob.
Adamek.
Hey, that profile's not going to raise itself.
I'll tell you though. So you took a picture of the band that was my daughter's in the orchestra, and you took a picture of her, and I made a copy of that picture.
Nice.
And I gave it to my parents.
Oh, that's awesome.
For their wallet, because they're still old school and they have pictures in their wallet. They want to show their,
That's awesome.
And it's your picture though. It's a picture you took, and I love it.
It's the
That is
best
a good
part of my
picture.
job.
Yeah, I mean, you killed. I'm just telling you right now, you killed.
So, like everybody, now I did, I'll backtrack just a little bit. I did the job for 6 years on a freelance contract. So I wasn't accruing service time.
Oh,
And
no.
when they brought me into the system, I realized that I had to have 11 years of service time to qualify for the pension program.
Right.
So I'm going to be doing this till I'm 66.
Hey.
That's old. That's so old.
I'm 61 now. So. But at any rate,
66. Holy smokes.
I'm trying to fight all the little microaggressions against the public school system.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Jay's there talking about the tax. The
Like
property
Jay's there
tax.
talking about Texas, yeah.
Sorry, my apologies.
No, well, what's good is you're in a safe space here. Both Chris and I work for a public school system, and big believers in it.
So am I.
Big believer.
I flunked out of a public school. Does that
Jay
count?
flunked out of one.
Jay,
so
on the
there's
other
that.
hand, is he's building Amish houses or something. We're not too sure what Jay's. He's just waiting to retire is what he's doing. Wait, or did you already retire?
I'm editing video right now. I'm
See
editing.
how he dodged that question right
He
there?
did. Yeah. That's called retirement, Jay.
Because I was such a prudent boomer that I saved so much money that I.
You prudent boomer.
You prudent boomer, you.
Oh, okay. So this is great. All right. So you are working for the Harrisonburg City School. You're the only I love that tale. That you're
Yeah.
the only one. That's
Yeah, that is.
But you
that
did
is
get
pretty
into
cool.
the system.
What's that?
They won't let you pay for those 7 years, because like sometimes if you're part time you can pay.
Yes,
and get in.
Talked to somebody about that once, and they said it's a lot of money. So
yeah.
I never really figured it out. But
You could do it still.
I could, but to be honest with you, I love this job.
Right.
Yeah,
It's the
that's
best job
cool.
I've ever had. I do something different every single day.
Right.
Well,
And I get to develop relationships with the kids.
Yeah.
Are you also working with their social media? I mean, like,
I
you-
run their
you Run it.
Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
You now the yearbook pictures is something entirely different. That's a lesser, not really an art form, correct?
Yearbook?
Pictures. The guy that do they still do that?
Oh, I don't mess with any of that.
That's not like really.
No,
art.
they still do
They
it.
just like
but
line you up.
it's companies that come in. And
Right.
They have it all.
Absolutely.
They have it set up, and kids are barely pausing as they walk past.
Yeah.
I shoot all the events.
Yeah.
Right,
Bob's
right.
more about the
Action shots. Yeah. Action shots.
But here's a word that I think is true for you. You're beloved.
Oh,
No, when
very
I'm at any event with Oliver at the high school, and here comes Bob, and there's his camera, and you're talking it up, and people are talking to you, and it feels it's positive.
Yeah.
I mean, people.
Well, see, that's an interesting thing about photographers. I think no one talks about, and it's the idea that the pictures don't. I mean, anybody can click a button,
Right.
Anybody can do that, but the person who can bring it out of people and be at the right place at the right time and intuitively know when to click that thing and how to bring it out. That's a skill set.
Absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what it is. You're right.
Give us an example of a really unique shot from the Harrisonburg schools that you're proud of.
And then we can even find it or something.
I took one of Paul and Brandy Summers' daughter. She was Ella. Was a tremendous high jumper.
Right.
And I think I might have shot it with a fisheye lens. I can't remember, but I knew the shot that I wanted to get. I wanted to just get her going over the bar, but I had to get. I think I did use a fisheye, and I wanted to get right on top of the bar because you have to be really close. It's such a wide angle. And the official came over. He goes, "Dude, I don't think you can stand there." And I'm like,
I took Paul McCartney's picture.
Back up,
"Don't you
man.
know
Hey,
who I
hey.
am?"
Well, took Paul's.
They let you know?
Yeah, I said, "Don't worry about it. I'm gonna be all right." And I got right on that bar, and I got a crazy good picture.
Wow.
Be like, Sir Elton said that this is where I should be standing.
Well, at 33 lumens, it's going to be. I don't know what I'm talking about.
You said the right word.
Oh, yeah. I did say lumens.
Is that part of your job, taking pictures of sporting events? Like,
Yeah, I've shot, except for tonight, I've shot sports like 7 straight nights.
wow.
Okay,
a lot of
if we're
basketball,
going to go with favorite
wrestling.
shots, what about band-wise? Favorite shot of a of a band? And it doesn't necessarily have to be. Oh, they're closing Ruby's. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone incredibly famous or just a good shot of a band.
That's a hard one to say.
Yeah,
because
right.
really,
Yeah.
We've had a lot of good bands.
I've shot thousands.
Yeah,
Because a lot
yeah.
of the festivals I shoot I'll shoot 60 bands.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so at any rate,
Okay, how about a festival? We went.
Jazz Fest in
Yeah.
New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
That's the greatest time on planet Earth.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
It's-
nice.
Nothing is better
Did you
than
see
that.
Paul Simon when he plays that?
No, I
often.
missed it. I missed him when he
Marcello.
played.
Do you run into down there?
I sure have.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of festivals, I don't know if you did it this past summer because I was kind of out of the loop, but the previous summer you spearheaded a group of students,
Yeah.
youth, if
Yeah.
you will, photographers, young photographers at the Levitt Amp series of festivals.
Yeah, I did
here.
it this past year as
Cool.
well, and
Great.
I think I'm doing it this coming summer. They had a 3-year commitment from Levitt Amp to do a free 10-week concert series that they do right next to the Turner Pavilion across from the Daily News Record. And Andrea Dono, the director of Harrisonburg Downtown Renaissance, she called me and with the idea. She said, "How would you like to run a group of kid photographers to shoot the series?" And
And though I'll be dressed up as Kid Rock.
Interestingly enough,
Dono.
And they're inobtrusive or unobtrusive.
But it's also it's just cool because it's kind of a highly visible way. If you haven't met Bob and you're just out and about in Harrisonburg and you happen to be at one of the concerts this summer or the previous summer, he's the guy in the really cool hat with this flock of kids with cameras, and they're just like taking it in.
Great.
that's been super fun
Yeah.
because as we talked about before, I used to coach youth rock bands. And I'm stuck on that now. And that was like my favorite thing I ever did in music. And when Andrea said, "Do you want to coach kids shooting rock and roll?" I was like,
Yeah.
"Are you punking me?"
Yeah, right.
Of course I want to do that.
Yeah, right.
So I teach a little like one night class on the ins and outs of shooting music and
Gotcha.
what festival directors will want from those photographs, what bands will want from those photographs, what they won't want. And then, I'm there to hang out with them and answer any questions or solve any problems that I can.
Very cool.
We shoot the whole thing.
well, we're in wrap-up mode but I did want to ask you: is there something that you are really looking forward to in the next year, the next month? That
Yes.
you're like, boom, this is what I'm pumped about. What do you got?
So I've been shooting wildlife very seriously the last 5 years, and it has turned into a realistic part of my side income.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I take trips. I've cut my music festivals back to 5 a year, so I have more time that I can go out and take trips to shoot wildlife. And this year I'm going to Yellowstone and Grand Teton.
What?
Nice.
What's the best bird you got in Harrisonburg?
Okay, at Hilldale Park,
There's
I
a lot
got
of
a-
birders out there.
a red phase and gray phase screech owl in the same hole.
Fantastic.
Oh, that's awesome.
Do you
Also
have a few,
got a snowy
words?
owl in Bridgewater.
Which would?
A snowy owl in Bridgewater
Wow.
a couple of years ago.
You know what? I think I
Very
saw
cool.
that owl. I'm not actually making that up. That's real. There was a big white snowy owl. And it was flying by the interstate. I swear to God.
Is the owl here right now?
No.
Okay.
This was years ago. Maybe it was through Mount Carmel.
I think it was it 2021? I think it was January 2021.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I saw it. I know that sounds crazy, but I remember that being a thing.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I can't wait to.
We have a fun connection with Brooke Ember. She was on our podcast, and she was telling us that you and her did some wildlife stuff together, which is awesome.
I see a lot of your wildlife shots on the social media.
Yeah, but every 3 months
They're really cool.
Gather everything I
coyotes
had.
and foxes and all kinds of stuff.
And black bears and elk.
Are you going to put something together as far as a compilation of all these pictures, or?
I do shows.
Yeah.
I did one at Hotel Madison.
Okay.
I've done 2 wildlife shows there and 2 rock and roll shows there, and I've done did a wildlife show at the Smith House, and but I started vending. Did my first at a music festival. I was shooting Yarnival for the band Yarn back around Halloween, and I vended for the first time and did shockingly well.
Nice.
With the
Fantastic.
wildlife stuff. I basically have half rock and roll and half wildlife, and I don't know, they probably sold equal parts.
Cool. Well, I will try to link in this show some
You have photos down at the tuning fork too, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I got
yeah.
a bunch of rock and roll photos
they're
down there.
really cool.
And then, did you want to connect Brooke to the
Brooke
show?
Ember.
I did. So Brooke Ember has an art opening, in which she was at a couple parks out west, and I believe she's got an opening first Friday of February 7th. Thank you. I know that date.
I know when First Friday is.
Yeah. February 7th at Sagebird. And at
Who's
6
playing?
I think there's
music
some other
that
people
night?
playing, right?
Hot Mamas.
Hot
Yeah,
Mamas.
the Hot Mamas are playing at 6 o'clock. Little Man on the Basement Rebellion.
Yeah.
We're playing around 8:30
Yep.
that night.
Yep.
Do
And then
you just come.
Scantron.
you need
It's Scantron.
The Destroyer.
Need to borrow a bass sample.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
followed by Darlington Pear.
Oh, yeah.
Stanton, the guy from Pavement, the drummer from Pavement, is their drummer. That's crazy to me. Anyways,
I won't be able to catch the Hot Mamas, and I might miss you guys, but I'll definitely catch up with you. But I got an improv show that night.
Hey.
Where's your improv show?
Where
at?
it always is.
Courts
Where
Square
is it?
Theater.
Yeah. First Fridays, buddy.
First Friday.
But after
Friday.
my show, I'm going to come over and hang out at your show because it sounds really fun.
Oh, it will be fun. There's going to be great pictures on the wall, and cider's going to be flowing, and it'll be wonderful. Bob,
And bring your earphone.
Bring your earplugs.
Earplugs.
yeah,
Your
hey,
earphones.
thank you so much for being here, Bob.
Yes.
Thank you for
Yeah,
having
It was a great
Yeah,
conversation.
absolutely.
Best of luck to you and all of you're up to in the next while, and maybe in another year you can come back and tell us what's going on next.
Yes, very cool.
Because this was an awesome conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Love this podcast.
Yeah.
That's the music playing in the background.
Oh, of course.
Andre Vasconcelos on bass, one of the top jazz bass players.
That's right.
In,
I can hear him
in
right now.
Brazil, playing on our little podcast theme song. Anyway, that does it. Thanks again. Sponsored by Ruby's Arcade in scenic downtown Harrisonburg, otherwise known as Rocktown, Virginia. You can come down here for Bingo is Life for the family and kids. Free pizza, all kinds of crap going on. 7:30 on Tuesdays.
It's wonderful. It's
wonderful.
wonderful things
Free
are
cake
happening.
tonight too.
Free cake.
Free
You never
cake.
know when that's going to happen.
And listen
never
to
know.
us on the internet if we're still on the air for another 100 episodes. Anytime you want to.
Yeah, that's right. Happy 100th
Happy
episode.
We'll see you next week, kids.
Bye.
Bingo is Life, a post-bingo Harrisonburg podcast, is brought to you by the Brothers Howdeshell and our friends at Ruby's Arcade in downtown Harrisonburg, Virginia. If you've enjoyed the show and feel it's worth spreading a little joy in this world, please tell just one person that you like this podcast. Word of mouth, more than any other form of promotion, is how creative works get noticed and sustain themselves. Thank you, Andrew Hickey, for that bit of wisdom, and thank you, listeners, for being part of the fun.